This is a little slideshow I put together titled How to Kill a Public Radio Station. It's not that I want to kill a public radio station or that I have any experience killing a public radio station, but it's something that I've seen with the local public radio station and things that have gone on for a long time that have led to its demise. I'm not sure that it's going to be killed anytime soon, but it certainly, the things that I've seen go on really haven't helped. The first step is to find a healthy public radio station. It goes without saying that all radio stations are public. That's the nature of broadcasting. But to find a healthy public radio station, that's kind of a hat trick. When I grew up here, I'm one of Mendocino's native children. AM was a big part of my life. Stations like XERB, Wolfman Jack, Hot Mussy Baby, and KFRC, KRLA, KFRE. These were all prominent influences in my early life. Then, of course, a little later on, we had KDAC in Fort Bragg and KMFB east of Casper. Those played a big part in my formative years. Moving away, living in the Sacramento area, listened to KZAP and KYLO in Davis. That was a public radio station. And then later in the Bay Area, listened to KFOG. Then returning to Mendocino in 1986. The two major radio stations that I listened to here were KZYX and KMFB. Mostly KMFB because the programming was more to my liking than KZYX. KZYX was a little eclectic, and the people at KZYX were kind of annoying too. KZYX had everything going for it. First of all, as a public radio station, and I believe Mendocino County's first public radio station, it was eligible for a boatload of government funding. That helped out a lot. Also back then, this is 1985 when they got started, pot prices, illegal outdoor marijuana was going for $5,000 a pound, and there was a lot of ammo can millionaires with $100 bills buried in the ground in ammo cans. So there's a lot of money going around. There was a lot of legitimate wealth. People in the wine business in Anderson Valley, and then we had people, retirees on the Mendocino coast. There was a lot of money around to support a station like this, and so it really had everything going for it, with one possible exception, and that's that over my experience since between 1986 and now, I can say with confidence that KZYX is the most hated radio station in Mendocino County. Of course, you'd want to find a radio station, a public radio station with plenty of annual reports to legitimize your station and help you to garner funding, whether it's government funding or private funding. But you'd really want to have that. I got started in this, it was in 2010, and it was in response to a cry for help. My partner has a store in town, and there was a local person who came around to all the stores with a plea of help that the art center was going to go out of business if everybody that didn't rally and come to one of these meetings. And so I went to a meeting with my partner, and something just didn't smell right. And I should also say that the art center has an equal amount of antipathy to KZYX. A lot of people do not like this art center, but I thought, well, let's go and check it out and see, what's up. And that's when I started looking into the annual reports. And the annual report, it's the IRS calls it a Form 990. It's often called a tax return. It's not, because nonprofits do not pay taxes. In exchange for not paying taxes, they file an annual report called a Form 990, open for public inspection with the IRS and the state of California every year. So an abundance of annual reports helps one to understand where a nonprofit is and where it's going, and it really helps its eligibility toward funding. This is a collection of annual reports I have for KZYX going back to the year 2000. There's 24 of them here. Somehow I missed 2001. I'm not sure if I missed it or KZYX missed it, but I was able to go to the Registry of Charitable Trusts, that's the California State nonprofit paperwork recipient, online and download these over time. You can also get them at the Internal Revenue Service, and you can get them at a number of other nonprofit utilities, let's say. And so what we're looking for in these annual reports, it's not just numbers. What we're looking for in these annual reports are policies to see how these nonprofits are being operated. And I think there's a big amount of confusion that these they're just all numbers, and you would sign them like your accountant would hand you a tax return. Well, just sign it. You know, a lot of people believe that that's all you have to do with an annual report, Form 990. There's a lot of information in here. Sometimes it surprises the people who are running the nonprofit what information is inside the annual report. And this is a frame that shows one of KZYX's early Form 990s signed by Robertson, Cahill and Associates CPAs in Lakeport. They also have an office in Ukiah. So they're local. I see them as local. If you're getting money from Uncle Sam, you're gonna need to have audited financial statements, and that's no exceptions, because Uncle Sam doesn't really trust annual reports, even though they're prepared by licensed accountants, hopefully under penalty of perjury. What they're looking for are audited financial statements. So it's always good to have lots of audited financial statements. And here's a collection for the same time frame for KZYX, Mendocino County Public Broadcasting, DBA. Some of these, maybe 5 of them, are placeholders, but it's a pretty tight collection of audited financial statements which are supposed to line up with the annual reports, the Form 990s. In the event they don't, there's a reconciliation on the Form 990 that gives the accountant an opportunity to explain any differences. But this is a pretty relatively complete collection that I got off of KZYX's website years ago. In addition to audits, you're going to need an audit committee to make sure that the audits are done properly. And a provision for that committee is going to be, or should be, found in the bylaws of the subject nonprofit. In this case, this is the bylaws from July 12th, 2010, and it does indeed have a provision for an audit committee. Beyond that, there needs to be written policy for the audit committee to follow. And anybody touching the finances of the nonprofit need to abide the written policy as set forth by the nonprofit. And here's a policy booklet for financial management and controls for KZYX. When I found this, I read it cover to cover, and this is a really good set of policies for financial management. It talks about the audit committee, it talks about the finance committee. It's very, very thorough. Of course, this is dated 2006. We'll get to where it came from in a minute, but it's just a really, really good set of guidelines for anything having to do with finance. And it's just kind of funny how this wound up getting swept under the rug. One thing you don't want is somebody monkeying with your audited financial statements. And that's where password encrypted protection comes in. That you want password encrypted to prevent tampering. KZYX's earliest accountant is Robertson, Cahill and Associates, and they have just this encryption built into their documents. You cannot take this multi-page, how many pages is it? 14 pages. You can't take this document apart. You can't separate one page from it. You can't put any pages into it. So it's really a solid document. It's a way to make sure that you can rely on the audited financial statement and know that it is entire and unmessed with, unmonkeyed with. This is right off of the properties list for this document, and this is encryption. Having your financial statements and annual reports done by a local licensed accountant is important because it assures the public that they will have access to this accountant. And hopefully you want somebody in the same county or close to the same county. There's a lot of licensed accountants in Mendocino County where KZYX is, so you'd want somebody fairly close by. And here's the masthead and upper part of a letter from Robertson, Cahill and Associates on one of the KZYX audited financial statements. Shows that they have offices in Lakeport and Ukiah. And this is what you look for, somebody local. Step 2 is to get advice from that accountant. And this is one of the advantages of encrypted financial statements, an audited financial statement, is that the auditor here, Robertson Cahill, had an opportunity to put some recommendations into that audit, and they could not be removed or substituted, even though KZYX may have been, the board of directors may have been somewhat embarrassed or chagrined by these recommendations. They couldn't very well ignore them. They're always going to be with that audit, and these are internal control policies as far as how KZYX should be handling the finances so that they could get good audited financial statements in place. And where Robertson Cahill was going with this advice was to tell KZYX that it needed to create written policy based on that advice. And full circle, this is the financial management and controls that came out of that CPA's recommendation. Financial management and controls. Beautiful. One of the things set forth in that policy was to review annual reports every year. And here's the policy for reviewing those reports. Pretty straight up. And the policy for reviewing audited financial statements. It's all here, chapter and verse. All you have to do is read it. The audit would need to be authorized by an audit committee that would be set forth in the bylaws. And they're all here, all in plain English, all straight up. Step 3 is to ignore the accountant's advice, which is exactly what KZYX did. They ignored the accountant's advice. The easiest way to do that was to find another accountant who lived a little bit further away. A non-local licensed accountant. Frank Glogler fit the bill for that. He's in Humboldt County, quite a ways away. Naturally, Glogler was hired to prepare annual reports. Here's the first of them. This one dates from 2009. It was hidden from KZYX's governing board. And here's where it was hidden, where it says right on the annual report, no review was or will be conducted of the Form 990 or annual report. This blew my mind. It wasn't just 1 year or two. This went on for 7 consecutive years. And here they are. I remember when I found these, I was doing some research on, I think it was the Art Center, and I was looking for this no review was or will be conducted language to see if it turned up in any other 990s in Mendocino County or anywhere else. And when I found this, I thought, gosh, is that common practice? And, I looked for it everywhere, and very few places in the country did this language ever turn up. The only other place that matched it was a volunteer fire department in upstate New York, the Mahopac Volunteer Fire Department, where a guy got away with doing this same language for 7 years running, was ultimately got a prison sentence for embezzlement of several $100,000. So this really, really concerned me. And I remember taking it to the KZYX governing board and being brushed aside and gaslighted over it, that I didn't know what I was talking about. But tell you what, here they are. Wow. And they had Mr. Glogler prepare audited financial statements as well. Here's the first of them. It had no password encryption, naked as a jaybird. Here's the properties on that document. This means that anybody can do anything with this audit, and nobody would know any better. You could add pages, take away pages, change pages. You could turn the damn thing into a comic book, and it would still have Glogler's ID on the cover page. Unbelievable. And that was done for 9 consecutive years. Wow. And here they are, all 9 of them. And Mr. Glogler was hired to prepare annual reports like this one here, without any signatures, like this, for 7 of those years. And here they are. Step 4 is to hire another non-local accountant. This one's Fick, Eggemeyer, and Williamson, more than 2,000 miles away. Get a load of that. 2,000 miles away. What does that tell you? It's more than a Sunday drive, that's for sure. Check out the map. Wow. FEW was hired to prepare annual reports and audits, just like these, for 8 consecutive years. Here's the annual reports. And FEW was hired to prepare audited financial statements, like this one, without password encryption, like this one, for 8 consecutive years, like these. And leave annual reports unsigned, like this, for 3 of those years, like these. And forget about audited financial statements, like these, for 2 of those years. And here they are. And just maybe to forget to check the annual report, like this, against the audited financial statement, like this. And to overlook a $46,035 accounting error. Step 5, move the goalposts. And this is what KZYX did. They amended the bylaws. Here they are. On July 27th, 2021. Here's the cover sheet to those bylaws with the same date, July 27th, 2021. And then to record that in board meeting minutes, here's a link posted on the KZYX website that can't be found on the KZYX website. It's just not there. Page not found. The next thing they did was to disband the audit committee. Here it is in the new bylaws, replaced by the Finance Committee. There's no audit committee mentioned in the new bylaws whatsoever. Bye-bye, audit committee. Next on the list was disguising the annual reports as tax returns. 12 times. Here they are. Next up was plunging the public radio station into debt. And here's a chart showing that. Then raising the public radio station's overhead. And here's a chart showing that. And last but not least, to cut local news programming. And here is a presser showing that. Step 6 is to gaslight the public. This is an email from then President Meg Courtney of KZYX, and this is in 2016. I had just written a story called The Nonprofits of Mendocino County, including the 7 mysterious annual reports that were hidden from the board, and that was in their policy section. And the response I got from her was this: there is no policy, complete denial, complete gaslighting. I didn't really know what to make of this. I thought I was doing KZYX a favor. And this bears a little anecdote. One time a few years ago, I was walking through an airport. I think it was in Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a guy walking ahead of me. He had a big hunk of toilet paper stuck to his shoe. And I went up and tapped him on the shoulder and pointed down the toilet paper. And he looked at me and he said, "Thank you." And he took the toilet paper off and kept on walking. And I felt just immensely gratified. I couldn't figure out why. Then I realized that here I was. I do this in Mendocino County all the time. I say, hey, Meg, your annual reports are out of whack. Your policy is rotten. And she says, there is no policy. And that's why I was so delighted. It was like I was almost expecting the guy to be angry with me that I was pointing out that he was looking like a fool with toilet paper stuck to his shoe. So I guess that Meg Courtney was just better off with toilet paper stuck to her shoe. God, give me a break. Step 7, hire a public affairs director. Here's a current KZYX staff directory. The 5th one down under public affairs director is W. Dan Hauk. And he's a programmer. He's got a show called The Treehouse where he plays comedy. And I've heard him on the radio. You'll notice that there's no link to his name. He has no background in public affairs that I know of, but it was weird to me that KZOX was cutting the news department and replacing it with a public affairs director. I wonder how that's working out for him. And this man just loves to party. This is him on the right enjoying a pint. I got nothing against beer or people who drink beer or public affairs people, but it just seems to me that W. Dan might have been more engaged with what was going on in the station than hanging out at the local brewery. And as the new public affairs director was having a cold one, 25% of KZYX's funding disappears. The United States Congress did this, July 18th, 2025. A dark day for public broadcasting. But God darn it, it's almost like the ant and the grasshopper fable, where the grasshopper is fiddling while the ant is taking care of business. It was no accident that KZOX lost 25% of his operational funding, and probably more, because nobody was taking care of business. They're all fooling around, having a beer. God, can't stand it. Step 8. Take all of these steps in broad daylight. In front of members, underwriters, and donors. For 25 years at KZYX. That's how to kill a public radio station in 8 easy steps. I know there are going to be some questions, and the first question is going to be, why this? And the answer to that question is to answer questions from KZYX. Remember that email I got from Meg Courtney in 2016, identifying herself as the board president of KZYX? This is that email. Her first question was, where did I get this information? And her second question was, why did I think that there was a policy? Right? The second question that's going to be asked of me is, why now? The answer to that question is in the news, where Congress votes to strip more than $1 billion in funding for NPR and PBS. That includes the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is exactly why KZYX lost $174,000. And question number 3 is, why am I picking on poor Meg Courtney? It all stems from her email to me in 2016, where she identified herself as the board president of KZYX. And here it is. Couldn't get much clearer than that. Board president, KZYX. We're going to go to the annual report for 2012. Filed under penalty of perjury. Here's the roster of 10 board members for KZYX, where Meg Courtney is identified as secretary, not president, but secretary. She held that position for 4 consecutive years, from 2013 through 2016. She never became president. She was the secretary, period. Courtney was never president of KZYX. So why the disguise? The last question I'm going to be asked is, where's the proof? You know, where's the beef? Well, I'm going to show you. It's right here on your web browser at https://tinyurl.com/killing-public-radio. It's a web page that's got links to everything. All the annual reports, all the audits, all the information that I've given you. It's all there. You can all run it to ground and see all that proof for yourself. Then maybe somebody ought to go back to KZYX and say, why did this all happen? Thanks for listening.